Okay, so we are continuing where we left off on part one, and let's share the Marmakomos here. Okay, so we're now going to continue this, and let's see where we are going to be starting from. We had gone over a bunch of different sources and different questions we had started with. So we are now going to look at let's see here. Just want to make sure that we're all set. We're going to start with Tosfos, but we had started the discussion from the Gemara in Menachos. We had discussed. I'm not sure why it's not. Here. We had discussed the Gemara in Menachos about whether or not a person could really be punished for a person could really be punished. I'm going to have to stop this. Sorry. Whether a person could really be punished for the not doing a mitzvah. In other words, we talked about the example that he gave was tzitzis. Okay, the example that he gave was tzitzis. If you have a pair of tzitzis, and let's say you're not wearing tzitzis. I apologize. We're really off topic here. Okay, a person doesn't have a pair of tzitzis. Okay, and do they really have to go out and buy a pair of tzitzis? Do they have to obligate themselves in tzitzis? Okay, that's the question. Okay, now we can share. Now we can be on board here. Everything is good now. Okay, so I apologize for that. So the question is: does a person have to go ahead and do they have to buy a pair of tzitzis if they don't own a pair of tzitzis? Okay, that's our question. And so we're gonna look at it here at the start with Tosfos. First of all, let's just review a little. Okay, we'll review the Rush. Okay, the Rush had said that a person, even though a person doesn't have to get a garment with four corners to put on tzitzis, a person should learn from Moshe, who wanted to fulfill as many mitzvahs as possible. That is, and especially tzitzis, which reminds us to do all the mitzvahs, that a person should go out and buy tzitzis. Okay. The second, so that was the Rush, and we wanted to know. We asked about the Rush. Is this like a mitzvah the Rush is talking about? Is a chiyuv? Is this a mussar lesson? Like, what's the Rush doing here? Okay, and then we saw that Rabbi Yonah and Shiur wrote that a person is obligated to, right? So the Rush had said that a person doesn't have to, but they should. And now the Rabbi Yonah says a person is obligated 100% to go ahead and to buy themselves a pair of tzitzis if they're not wearing a garment that is obligated in wearing tzitzis. Okay, so those are the questions. So now what we're going to look at is Tosfos. Okay, and we're going to start with Tosfos. And Tosfos says the following. He says, "Kol chayev mitzvos im yesh lahem talis v'im lo yichol leknos talis ein chayavin lo l'man davar chovas talis lo l'man davar chovas gaver." Okay, so if a person has a person has a garment and he can't go ahead and buy himself a talis, he's not chayav to buy himself a garment that has four corners. If you don't have a garment with four corners, there's no reason to buy it. It doesn't make a difference if you think that the mitzvah of talis is something that you have to put on the strings onto a garment. That's the mitzvah, or that you yourself have to be wearing a garment with strings. It doesn't make a difference. So even though we have this Gemara that the angel had come to Rabbi and told him that if he doesn't put on tzitzis, Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to get angry at him and punish him, right? So he says, right? So he says, are you looking for reasons to be patur? Right, so he says, so this is Tosfos' point, that it was dafka specifically in those days. It was in those days that all garments had four corners. So it was a normal thing for a garment to have four corners on it, right? That was an actual normal thing that garments would have four corners on them. So therefore, then in those times you had to go buy one. Okay, but today in our times, and so Sharov Hatilosos Paturin, where most of the garments that we buy that we wear today, they are exempt from tzitzis. So then, so then you don't have to buy, and you're not punished if you don't have a four-corner garment. Okay, so that's clear. That is that's the Tosos's opinion. Now, the Shita Mekubetzes says that he's going to sound a lot like the Rosh here. He's going to say, "Mu tzarich lishtadel l'kayim kol mitzvos, v'chimosher Rabbeinu haya ta'ev l'chol be'peretz haaretz al mitzvos talilos ba'aretz chol shchem mitzvos tzitzis shish kolagin kol mitzvos." So he sounds exactly like the Rosh, and he says that everybody has to wear tzitzis, and therefore, right, just like Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to do more mitzvos, so we should want to do more mitzvos, and therefore you should go out and strive to always wear a four-cornered garment that has tzitzis on it. Okay, now the Rambam held. Let's see how the Rambam holds here. He says, "Af al pi she'ein adam mechuyav l'knos l'talis l'sas teifla." But even though a person is not obligated, and he says straight out here, so he's sliding more like Tosos in the Rush than Shita Mekubetzes, that a person is not obligated to go out and buy a talis. This is against Rabbi Yonah that holds that it does. Now, just to keep in mind, Rabbi Yonah was after the Rambam, so it's not that the Rambams disagree with Rabbi Yonah, it's quite the opposite. Okay, so he says, it's not a person that's a chassid, and it doesn't mean today's chassidim, it means people that go above and beyond the letter of the law. So those people it's not worthy of them to exempt themselves from this mitzvah. A person should always strive to be wearing a garment that has tzitzis on it, in order to fulfill this mitzvah. Now in tefillah, you have to be extra careful to always be wearing tzitzis, right? So during the day you should be careful. During tefillah you should always be careful. And it's like disgraceful if you have a Talmid Chacham that's davening and he's not wearing tzitzis. Okay, so the Rambam seems to be like it's not where sort of like another middle ground the Rambam finds, where it's not obligatory to go out and buy a garment, and at the same time you should though. At the same time, you should put on a garment if you can. Okay, so let's see here. Now, what does the Torah say? The Torah says, even though the person is not obligated to, in order that he be chayav in tzitzis, instead, if you want to put on a garment with four corners, then you have to make sure you put tzitzis on it. Okay, right? That we know. He says, it's good and a person should and right that a person should always be wearing tzitzis. Right, so he says that a person should always have it, and this is the common practice among B'nai Torah today. That a person should always try as best as possible to be wearing a small garment that has tzitzis, because ikar mitzvos schiyas mitzvos chol shah v'chol rega tzarich lekach, right? And so the ikar of this mitzvah is to always be reminded of wearing mitzvos, of doing mitzvos, and that's what tzitzis does. So it's much better if you're always wearing it as opposed to only at times where you happen to have a four-corner garment. Okay, now Tosos says as follows. Look at Tosos here, and this is going to be an important Tosos. We're going to spend some time on this Tosos, okay? And we're going to see this Tosos, and then the Shita Mekubetzes and the Rambam afterwards. This is going to be very instrumental for us in understanding the topic that we are investigating now. Okay, so look at the Tosos says. He says. Right, so even though a person is not obligated in buying a talis that has four corners, if right? So if he doesn't have to do that, if he doesn't have tzitzis, אבל עשה גומר, אפילו based in Shalamata, so he says, but yeah, a person should really, right, and since this is different, okay, and it's different because it's not obligatory, okay? So while Basin would force a regular, when it comes to a regular mitzvah, let's say I didn't want to do, we're going to see in a second, the mitzvah sukkah. I didn't want to build a sukkah. So Basin would force you to build a sukkah, okay, and live in that sukkah. Right, so even though that's normally the case, so Tosfos is bothered, why don't we do this by tzitzis? And his answer is because tzitzis is different, because it's not obligatory. Now, let's see here. So if you look at the Shita Mekubetzes here, okay, let's keep going here. Look at the Shita Mekubetzes. He says on Shisu say Afal Gav Da'arinan Asay Sukkah Ve'eno Ose Makin Oso Achatetze Nasho. Right, so even though we say that a person should build a sukkah, and if he doesn't, we're going to whip him until he dies. And it's literally that's the truth. That's what we do. Okay, Hasam the mitzvah kvua about tzitzis ein zman kvua lo anshe asay kihai. Right, so that's when it says the Shita Mekubetzes. Listen to this carefully. He says because he's creating a category here. That's what's important for us on a methodological level to understand the sugya. It's important for us to recognize that what the Shita Mekubetzes is doing here is he's creating a category. He says, when it comes to a mitzvah kvua, and an example clearly that he maintains the mitzvah kvua is sukkah. So then a person has to go ahead and do the mitzvah, even if he feels he's not chayiv. In other words, sukkah, you could say, okay, I'm not going to fall asleep for a long enough period throughout the entire chag. I'm not going to eat anything that's choveh. I'm just going to have b'nei targim. I'm going to have snacks. So that's what I'll do the entire time, and therefore I won't have to go ahead. I won't have to do the mitzvah, right, of sukkah. So there, no, we say since it's a mitzvah kavua, so then right, you have to go ahead. It has a set time. But the difference between sukkah and tzitzis is that sukkah has a set time. It must be done on the 15th of Tishrei. On the night of the 15th of Tishrei, you must sit in a sukkah. So because you must sit in a sukkah, so therefore you have to build it. Okay, so that's so far. That's our second category. I'll show you in a minute what I mean by second category. And now you have, look at the Rambam. The Rambam says as follows: says Yesh mitzvahs asay, and I'm going to put this on the next line so it's easier. It says Yesh mitzvahs asay she'adam chayav lehishtadel l'erdov ad shiaseh osa. Okay, you can go and fill in the sukkah, the lulav, the shofar, elin, and ikrem chova. Okay, so there are mitzvahs that a person has to do, and he has to strive as best as possible to do them. And those are called an obligation. Okay, so that's obligatory. It says because you don't have a choice. I wake up in the morning, I have to put my tefillin on. I don't have a choice about whether to put on tefillin or not. Okay. Right, and now there are other mitzvos essays that are not obligatory. Okay, rather, what are they? Right, right. So these mitzvos are not obligatory. He says so they seem to be almost optional. Okay, they seem to be almost optional mitzvos. What does that mean? That they're almost optional. Okay, so he says that. Could go mezuzah or makah. She'en adam chayav lishkon b'bayis chayav b'mezuzah. Kidei she'asa mezuzah. El imratz lishkon kol yom ba'oel b'sina yeshiv. She'en chayav libnos bayis kidei lasos makah. Okay, so these are mitzvos. They're situational. You're only obligated in them. Okay, they're only obligated in them when in certain situations. So mezuzah, you're only obligated to fulfill the mitzvah mezuzah when you're living in a house. But if I decide to live in a boat or live in a tent my entire life, I'm never obligated in the mitzvah mezuzah. So therefore, I'm not. That's similar to Rosh Hashanah. Same thing with makkah. He says, like the fence that you have to build around the roof of your house. If I don't have a house, I don't have to build makkah. Now, no one's going to tell me you're chayiv to go ahead and build a home in order to fulfill the mitzvah makkah. Or if I have a roof that's slanted, and I'm exempt from because I don't have a roof that you can stand on, you might fall off of. So now you have to build a house at the end of your life in order to fulfill the mitzvah makkah. No, I'm only obligated to build a mitzvah makkah once I have a house. Okay, so that's our next category. Okay, now okay. So then you have the Gemara that talks about being makkah for sukkah, just to bring it. Okay, so if you follow Tosfos, the Shita Gubetzes, and now the Rambam, we're going to say that there are 4 categories of mitzvos. Okay, and this is important for us to understand this before we move on here. Okay, we're going to say there are 4 categories of mitzvos. The first category of mitzvah are mitzvahs that you're obligated in, what the Rambam calls mitzvahs chova. Okay, you're obligated no matter what, you've got to do this, and that's like the mitzvah of lulav. No matter what, I must do the mitzvah of lulav, I have to do the mitzvah of tefillin, right? These are mitzvahs that I'm obligated in, no questions asked. Okay, then there are mitzvahs that are kavua, okay, like sukkah. So even though you're exempt from sukkah, if you don't own one, you still have to go ahead and buy and build a sukkah to fulfill the mitzvah, right? So this, in this case, it's interesting. It has traits similar to a chov, right? Like lulav and like tefillin, but at the same time, there are also exemptions from the mitzvah, right? And because of those exemptions, I might think that I'm not obligated to go ahead and fulfill the necessary requirements of the mitzvah. That's not true, okay? And that's what's happening here when we talk about a mitzvah kavua, right? A mitzvah that's set, that's obligatory. At a certain point, you have to do that mitzvah, okay? So that's what we see when it comes to this mitzvah. Okay, so that's the second category. Now, if we go to the third category, okay, this third category is mitzvahs that are reshus. Okay, they're reshus is like it's optional, but let me explain what I mean by optional. Okay, it's not exactly optional. Okay, these are mitzvahs that a person is only obligated in. Okay, a person is only obligated in certain situations, and that's the example of mezuzah. I'm only obligated in mezuzah when I have a house. If I don't have a house, I'm not obligated in mezuzah, and I never have to have a house my whole life. I live in a tent my whole life, so I'm not obligated in mezuzah. But once I build a house, right? So then I have to. Now, the question is if tzitzis fits into this category, because it seems like it does. It seems like tzitzis would fit into this category. Okay, then because I don't have to fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzis unless I'm gone ahead and bought a 4-corner garment. Okay, so that's seems like tzitzis is more of a rishus. Okay, last I have mitzvah kiyumis. Okay, mitzvah kiyumis is where there's absolutely no obligation to fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, no matter what situation I'm in, I'm never going to be in a situation with these mitzvahs that I have to do it. Okay, but when I do fulfill the mitzvah, I'm a kayyim mitzvah when I do it. So this would be, for example, I'm going to pull an interesting example here. Okay, so you talk about like marrying a second wife. I'm just going to shut this window here to fix the lighting. So marrying a second wife. Okay, so I'm obviously not obligated to marry a second wife, right? I don't have to marry a second wife. But if I do marry a second wife, I have fulfilled the mitzvah of kiddushin, right? I have fulfilled the mitzvah of kiddushin because I've married a second wife. Okay, so again, 4 categories of mitzvahs. The first category are mitzvahs that you're obligated in, no matter what the situation, no matter what, right? You're obligated in, like lulav on sukkah, tefillin every single day. Second are mitzvahs that are kavua, okay, like sukkah, meaning that I could be exempt from the mitzvah in certain situations, but because there's a certain time that I'm obligated to do it, so then I have to build a sukkah at that point. Okay. The third are mitzvahs that are reshus, that a person's only obligated in this mitzvah in certain circumstances. If I make those situations, I make those circumstances, then I'm chayav. Okay. And last, I have mitzvah kiyumis, and then that's just where it's completely optional for me to do the mitzvah or not. Okay. Now, we had seen the Rambam had says that had wanted to do mitzvahs, and this is not limited to the Rambam. Right? It's not limited to the Rambam. You see here in source number 18, "Benazai Omer Haviratzel Mitzvah Kala Kichamura." Uvrorach min avera shemitzvah goras mitzvah, avera goras avera sheskar mitzvah skar avera. Right, that a person should always run to do even a light mitzvah that seems not important. The Rambam calls learning Lashon Kodesh fits this bill, and Simcha and Chag fits this bill. A person should still try to run after them and fulfill these mitzvahs, even though they're easier and lighter mitzvahs. Okay, so and run away from avera, because mitzvahs and averos bring on averos. Okay. So so that's right. So that's the, if you look in the Rambam in the Parish Mishnayos here, source number 19, he says Kvar Bein Parish Ma'amar Karoi Beparak Asir Misadheshik Kvar Yiru Chachamim Alayam Shalom Achidish Nifla B'Torah Yishval Ziruz Al Ma'isa Mitzvahs Hu Amru Az Yavdil Moshe Shol Sharim. So the Rambam is going to bring the example. I'll read it outside here of the Rambam and the Ir and Miklat. The Ir and Miklat are cities that are designed as cities of refuge. So the Rambam is going to set up 3 in Chutz La'aretz, but they're not going to take effect until the 3 are set up in Eretz Yisrael. Moshe is not going to live that long. Okay, Moshe is not going to live that long. So, but yet at the same time, Moshe still goes ahead and sets up the Ari Miklat that are not effective until the ones in Eretz Yisrael are set up. So even though that's all true, right? Moshe Rabbeinu still runs to set them up, because if right says mitzvah comes to my hand, I'm going to do it, even though he's not going to be mekayim, he's not going to fulfill the mitzvah until the other cities are built. He still wants a portion of it done. Okay, and that's in order to show that that he's always trying to do mitzvahs. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop here. Right? Let's just review the questions. Okay, review the questions here. And B'li Neder, we hope to finish this sugya next week. He'll give a svar next week. Maybe we'll give a svar at the end of these questions, and then give one and start off with it next time. Okay, so he says that here are our questions. Okay, the questions are as follows. Without delving into the details of Trumas and Maestros, we wanted to know if in that first Gemara in Brachos, if the Gemara's problem is trying to get out of the mitzvah. Right, we talked about the person bringing in Trumas and Maestros from the outside. So is that person is getting out of the mitzvah problem? Okay, and we said that there are mitzvahs we need to fulfill, and that we should be punished for neglecting them. So we wanted to know why Rav Katina what's he referring to in this Gemara about never wearing tzitzis? Right? Is that what kind of thing is that? Is that a mitzvah, or is he arguing not a mitzvah? Okay, what's wrong with eating less than a shiur of food? Right, I want to know what's wrong with eating less than a shiur of food. The Rosh had said that a Yireh Shamayim won't do that. Okay, it was Moshe Rabbeinu wanting to do more mitzvos. Is that instructive for us, or was that limited to him? Right. So okay, and what's the nature of the prohibition of getting out of Trumas and Maestros, and its extension to the rest of the Torah? Okay, we wanted to know what the debate was between the Rambam and the Meiri over whether it's possible to get out of taking Trumas and Maestros by bringing it through the window. Okay, and we wanted to know what the Rambam's problem was. The Rambam held that it was usher to take less than the shiur of challah. You can't do that. You can't get out of challah by making less than the measurement amount. So what's the problem with that? And the Rambam had written that it was prohibited to make less than a shiur of challah, but maintained that it was permissible to go ahead and get out of taking Trumas and Maestros. So it seems like you can't get out of challah, but you can get out of Trumas and Maestros. So how do we understand that? It seems to be like the Rambam is contradicting himself there. So how do we understand that? Okay, when the Rosh learned that a person should learn from Moshe and fulfill as many mitzvahs as possible, okay, so, and especially tzitzis, we wanted to know if that was a Musar lesson, if that was halacha. That's how we started off today's shiur. Okay, and then when Rabbi Yonah wrote that a person is obligated to buy a tzitzis garment, okay, is that really, in Rabbi Yonah's opinion, about that it's obligatory? Is that what he's saying? So let's start a svara, and then next time we come back, we'll continue and explain the svara even more. So when the Gemara wrote, okay, here's my smart to understand all these different questions. And I think that once we say this svara, then the question should become the answer should become obvious. So when the Gemara wrote that you could be punished at certain times for fulfilling a mitzvah's essay, okay, it's not referring to the categories of obligatory mitzvahs, okay, because that's obvious that you'll be punished. Or a mitzvah essay kavua, okay, remember our categories of mitzvahs, because that's also obvious that you'll be punished. And not a mitzvah essay kiyumis, because you're nowhere near obligated in it, okay. So when the Gemara wrote that you could be punished at certain times for not fulfilling a mitzvah essay, it's referring to a mitzvah essay that's a reshus. Okay, the Gemara is whether a person has to put themselves in a situation that then obligates himself to fulfill that mitzvah. Okay, so that's now that we've narrowed it down. As we created categories, we saw the categories there, and then we're able to siphon off all the different examples and see how they're not applicable to what we're talking about. Okay, so now, so in addition to the 4 categories of mitzvos, there are 2 more types of mitzvos, and there's situations of shiurim, where there's a certain measurement, and tanaim, where there are certain conditions that have to be met. Okay, so this means that there's an amount and or a condition that needs to be met to obligate a person in the mitzvah. Okay, so for instance, shiur is an amount of flour that has to be obligated in challah, and examples of tanaim are fruits being brought in through the front door. Okay, so those are examples of where you see that the mitzvah is dependent on there's a situation and whether or not whether those situations are measurements and are conditions. Okay, so now there's a difference between situations of shiurim and tanaim. Okay, when it comes to shiurim, in other words, you have to have a certain amount of flour in order to be obligated in the challah. Okay, so the person's already shaykh to the mitzvah. He's already associates himself with the mitzvah. He just lacks the proper amount needed to fulfill the mitzvah, right? So in other words, he's already attached to the mitzvah. He already has his dough out there. He's shaykh to the mitzvah. He just doesn't have enough that he's obligated to fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, so therefore the Rambam maintained it would be forbidden for him to try to not fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, that's because he's already involved in the mitzvah. He's already there. Okay, so to make less and go with it, that's not proper because you're already involved. Now that's different from the situation of tanaim, of conditions. When he lacks a condition, like bringing fruits through the front door, that's not a measurement, that's a condition. So he's never been shaykh to the mitzvah, right? He's not obligated to the mitzvah, he's not shaykh to the mitzvah. Okay, so therefore the Rambam maintained that it would be permissible for him to try to not fulfill the mitzvah. That's okay. When it comes to davening, which is again when it comes to shiurim, okay, so a person's already shaykh to the mitzvah, he just lacks the proper amount needed to fulfill the mitzvah. So Rambam maintained it would be forbidden for him to try to not fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, that's our svara. What we're going to do, b'li neder, next time is continue with this by starting off with the svara and then using the svara to answer our questions, and that should be the end of the sugya. Okay, shalom, shalom.